Hi, my name is Michael Kumar. For my lesson plan is one of the history cases we reviewed earlier this year, Brown versus Board of Education. So this is for a 7th grade civics class. Sorry, I had to change it all in red. It didn't show up very well the last time. So normally what I would have is bell rings, kids are outside and lined up. We'd come in. When they come in, sit down, they would start copying down the vocab for the day. So in this case, we got these 4 vocab words. They would copy these down while I take a roll. Normally it doesn't take 5 minutes, especially later on in the year when they get really used to everything. So that way I can jump into my lesson a little quicker. But in this case, I just put down that it would take 5 minutes. So they come in, they copy down these 4 vocab words. I got highlighted here in bold. After that, we start reviewing for the lesson, or I give them instructions on what they're going to be doing for the lesson for that day. So I would come up and say, all right, guys, today we'll be talking about Brown versus Board of Education. I have your reading packets here. These are primary and secondary sources I'm going to be passing out, and I would have passed those out while they were copying down the vocab. So, right now I want you to write down these 4 questions. 1, what is segregation? You have to put that in your own words. You're going to read, use your vocab as well, in your own words. Tell me what was segregation. 2, until 1945, what were schools like? So what were they like? Who was in them? Who was teaching? Who was in them? And why? Why was that the case? Number 3, this is an opinion question. Is separate but equal constitutional? That's your opinion. Not looking for right or wrong on this one, I want your opinion. And why? So you tell me. If you think it's right, tell me why you think it's right. If you think it's wrong, tell me why you think it's wrong. 4th one, why did the Supreme Court rule that it was unconstitutional? So these are the 4 things I want you to look for in your readings. Okay? So I've passed these out, or they would already be out. Kids will be looking at them. It's got primary and secondary sources about people that were actually there in the courtroom that day or during the trial, and then it's got a little brief overview about Brown versus Board of Education. So in my lesson plan, I had that down for 20 minutes. While that's going on, I'm walking around, talking to the kids, making sure they're understanding, especially the ELL students. You know, if they have any questions, if they get lost somewhere, and looking for these questions or looking for the answers to these questions. After that 20 minutes is over, I'll come up, say, all right, guys, keep that piece of paper there. So now we'll move on to, I give a brief 10-minute PowerPoint on Brown versus Board of Education. So, to really understand Brown versus Board of Education, we have to look back at another court case, Plessy versus Ferguson. A real brief overview of that. Plessy versus Ferguson. Young black man was riding on a train in the northern states. As soon as they crossed the Mason-Dixon line, and I probably asked, all right, does anyone know what the Mason-Dixon line was? After they crossed that, the train conductor told him, all right, son, you got to move to the back. So it was fine in the northern states for him to be sitting where he was. As soon as they got to the southern states, have to go to the back. African Americans have to go to the back. So he sues the train company. Unfortunately, he doesn't win. The Supreme Court rules, and this is the first time we see it, that as long as the facilities are separate, it's fine. Or as long as facilities are equal, it's fine to be separate. As long as blacks and whites both have the same facilities, that's fine. The next thing we see, and this doesn't happen until the 50s, Brown versus Board of Education. Happens in Topeka, Kansas. This is the actual Supreme Court docket that it came on. Guy's name was Oliver Brown. It's filed on behalf of his daughter. So Brown versus Board of Education. Imagine how many of y'all walk to school? Okay, a fair number of y'all do. Imagine you got a school right down the street and one 5 miles away. You have to go to the one 5 miles away because of your skin color, because you cannot go to school with a certain group of people. And that's what happened to this little girl. There was a close, very close white school, but she couldn't go there because she was black. So she had to walk miles away to go to a school that was not adequate. Not adequate. Her father took this before the Supreme Court. This is Chief Justice Warren, and he's one. It's in your writings, or it's in your readings, excuse me. This is one of his reasoning behind the rule that he gave. So, right here we have a picture of a black school and of a white school. I don't know if you can tell from where you are, but so the black school, real poorly lit. You see a bunch of desks that are turned over, probably broken. You got one student here reading by himself, no teacher, the rest of the classroom's empty. Chalkboards all broken up over here. You have the white school, plenty of kids. You can see books that are intact, teachers sitting there teaching. The desks are nice and neat, okay? So these are the conditions that they went to. The black schools were not equal, so therefore they were breaking the Plessy v. Ferguson rule anyway. But the reason that the Supreme Court said no, they're not equal, and so they can't be separate, and the fact that it doesn't matter. All right, separate but equal doesn't matter. It won't work. So the reason they won was, unlike Plessy v. Ferguson, it didn't really pull on heartstrings. One guy had to go to the back of the train. In this case, we're talking about children. Children that it was human rights. They did all sorts of experiments, or not experiments, but experiments. You know, they hold up a white doll and a black doll, and black girls would go. You know, we like the white doll better. It was ingrained into their psyche about that. So they made the courts feel empathy for minority children. Integration. Separate children solely based on their race generates a feeling of inferiority that may affect their hearts, minds in a way unlikely to ever be undone. Okay? Now, this is one of the questions you're going to have to look at later outside the schools. How did this affect it? Well, restaurants, businesses, didn't affect them. Separate but equal was still good for that. Didn't affect them at all. It only was a ruling towards schools. They were not segregated. This did not segregate anything. All right? Nor did it tell the school systems when they had to segregate. They said, all right, we got to integrate, we got to bring everybody together, but they never gave them a time frame. Never gave them a time frame. So, segregation continues to go on, and it goes on for a while. White schools continue to hold off until they have to bring mix the schools up. All right, so now what we're going to do is you're going to break up into groups. 4 to a group. These two, how your tables are lumped together. One person's going to write these down on their paper. List the name of the people that are in your group. One person writes them down. What was the social impact of the court case? In other words, outside of the schools, what happened? It's in your readings. Also, what happened for the schools? Like we just said, did they have to come together right away? What was the social impact? 2, did it create controversy? Was this ruling accepted by everybody? Look at those primary resources. There's a few people in here in the primaries that did not like having to bring people together. 3rd, what can we learn from this? What was the overall thing when we talked about for Plessy v. Ferguson and versus Brown versus Board of Education, okay? What is the underlying tone here? All right, so you got about 10 minutes. Go ahead, work on that. During that 10 minutes, I'd walk around, make sure everybody's on task, the groups are talking about what they need to be talking about, answering these 3 questions, helping any groups that needed to be helped with prompting, but just make sure they were still on task. So, all right, I hope you liked it. I'm sorry I was laughing earlier. Somebody was at the door trying to get in. So, my name is Michael Kumar. Thank you very much.